My name is Shelby Atwood, and I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, I buried my dad, and a woman I'd never seen before walked up to his casket, placed a photograph inside, and told my mom. He promised us he'd tell you. He never did. She knew my name. She knew my age. He knew my age. She knew the lullaby my father used to sing me when I was 5. The two teenagers standing behind her, a girl and a boy, stared at us with wide, glassy eyes. The girl looked like a younger version of me. The boy had my father's jaw, my father's dark brown eyes, my father's way of standing with his hands in his pockets. The woman handed my mom a manila envelope. Inside was 17 years of lies. And it didn't just destroy the image of my father. It exposed the people still alive who'd been lying too. Before I take you back to that funeral, please take a moment to like and subscribe. But only if you truly connect with this story. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now, let me take you back to a Tuesday morning in October, the day we lowered my father into the ground, and everything I believed about my family cracked wide open. Millfield Community Church seats about 300. That Tuesday, every pew is full. White leaves line the altar. A blown-up photograph of my father, Gerald Raymond Atwood, age 61, sits on an easel beside the casket. He's smiling in the picture, wearing the flannel shirt he wore to every single job site. He built houses, 312 of them, in this county alone. I counted once, scrolling through the company's project log on a slow Sunday, trying to measure his legacy in something concrete. I didn't know back then that the biggest thing he ever built was a lie. Pastor Garrett opens with a prayer. He calls my father a cornerstone of Millfield, a man who built not just structures, but community. People nod. A woman in the third row dabs her eyes with a tissue. My brother Bryce sits in the front pew with his arm around our mother. Linda Atwood, 59, retired elementary school teacher, 5'3", in her Sunday shoes. She's lost weight since Dad collapsed in the driveway 6 days ago. Massive heart attack, the paramedic said. Gone before the ambulance turned onto our street. Bryce is 35, broad shoulders, clean jaw, press suit. He took over managing Atwood contracting 2 years ago when Dad started slowing down. Right now, he looks like the new patriarch, hand on Mom's back, chin up, a man in charge. I sit beside them, hands folded in my lap, watching the room. Our Uncle Keith, Dad's younger brother, the family's attorney, is 3 rows back. He's checking his phone under his hymnal. His thumbs move fast. I notice the way I notice things. It's my job. I'm a forensic accountant. Then the church doors open. Sunlight pours down the center aisle, and a woman I've never seen steps inside with 2 teenagers close behind her. She's maybe late 30s. Dark hair pulled back, a simple black dress, not expensive but pressed carefully. The kind of outfit you iron twice because you want to get it right. The girl behind her is about 17. Thin face, brown eyes. She's holding the boy's hand. Full's hand. He's maybe 15, tall for his age, with a jaw I'd recognize anywhere. My father's jaw. The woman walks straight down the center aisle. She doesn't look at anyone in the pews. She walks to the casket, and she places something on the satin beside my father's folded hands. A photograph? A photograph. I can see it from where I sit. My father's smiling, his arms around 2 small children on the porch of a house I've never seen. Then she turns to my mother. He promised us he would tell you, she says. Her voice is quiet but clear. Every person in that church hears it. He never did. She pulls a manila envelope from her bag and holds it out. My mother stares at it. Her hands don't move. They're shaking too hard. Bryce is on his feet instantly. This is not the time or place. His voice fills the room. Uncle Keith stands 2 right beside him, shoulder to shoulder, a wall. The woman doesn't flinch. There will never be a right time. She says 17 years was long enough. She looks at me and she says something that makes my stomach drop. You must be Shelby. He talked about you all the time. He said you were his favorite. She knows my name. She knows who I am. She knows who I am. My father told her about me all those years in that other house, in that other life, and he never once mentioned hers. I reach over and take the envelope from my mother's trembling hands. I don't open it at the church. I wait until we're back at the house, 9 Maple Street, the house my father built with his own hands 30 years ago. Mom sits on the living room sofa. She hasn't spoken since the service. Bryce paces by the window, jaw tight. Uncle Keith left 20 minutes ago with a box of files from Dad's home office. I watched him carry it to his car. He didn't ask permission. I sit at the kitchen table and open the manila envelope. Inside, 2 birth certificates, Jessa Marie Pratt, born March 14th, 2009. Father, Gerald Raymond Atwood, Caleb Thomas Pratt, born January 7th, 2011. Father Gerald Raymond Atwood. In. Father Gerald Raymond Atwood. A lease agreement for a house in Ridgewood, a town 90 minutes east, renewed every year for 14 years. Tenant Noel Pratt, guarantor Gerald R. Atwood, in bank statements, page after page. Monthly transfers of $3,200 to an account labeled Atwood Contracting, Ridgewood Operations, 17 years worth. I do the math in my head. It's what I do for a living. The total is somewhere north of $650,000. That's why Mom had to take out a loan to fix the roof last winter. That's why I paid for my own college. Dad said the business was going through a rough patch. That's why Mom has been clipping coupons for 3 decades while Dad drove to job sites 3 days a week. I look at my mother on the sofa. Mom, did you know? She shakes her head. Tears run down her face without sound. Bryce walks in from the hallway. Put that away. Put that away. We'll deal with it after the burial. This is not what Dad would have wanted. I watch his face. He's angry, but it's the wrong kind of angry. He's not shocked by the betrayal. He's furious that the envelope got opened. 3 days pass. Bryce moves fast. He tells Mom he'll handle all the business side, the company, the bank accounts, the estate paperwork. I'm right here, Millfield. He says at dinner, patting her hand. You shouldn't have to think about any of this. Mom nods. She trusts him. She's always trusted him. Bryce is the son who stayed. I'm the one who left for Columbus 10 years ago. Tuesday afternoon, I come downstairs and find Bryce at the kitchen table with a stack of papers and a pen. Mom is signing something. What's that? I ask. Temporary authorization, Bryce says without looking up, so I can manage the family accounts while Mom recovers. Mom signs the last page. Bryce slides the papers into a folder and tucks it under his arm. All set. You don't have to worry about a thing. He kisses Mom's forehead and walks out. That evening, Uncle Keith arrives. He and Bryce close themselves in Dad's home office. I stand in the hallway pretending to look at my phone. Through the door, I hear Keith's voice. Low-clipped. We need to get ahead of this before she starts digging. She, not a name, just she. They're talking about me. When Keith leaves an hour later, he's carrying another box of files from Dad's office. This one is larger than the first. I stand at the kitchen window and watch him load it into his trunk. I find Bryce in the living room. What's the plan for Mom's finances going forward? He doesn't miss a beat. I've got it handled. You should go back to Columbus. Mom needs rest, not more stress. He says it like a suggestion. It lands like a command. He didn't say, let me handle it. Like a son who wants to help. He said it like a man who needed me gone. 2:00 a.m., the house is dark. I move through the hallway in socks, past Mom's closed door, past the framed family photos that suddenly feel like props in a stage play. Dad's home office is at the end of the hall. Keith took the file boxes, but I know something Keith doesn't. My father kept copies of everything. Under the desk, bolted to the floor, there's a fireproof safe the size of a bread box. Dad installed it himself when I was 12. I sat cross-legged on the carpet and watched him drill the bolts. He set the combination to Mom's birthday. 70,366. July 3rd, 1966. I never forgot. The dial clicks, the door swings open. Inside, 5 years of tax returns for Atwood Contracting. Internal ledgers that don't match the ones Bryce showed the accountant last quarter. I remember him mentioning the audit at Thanksgiving. And underneath all of it, a handwritten letter on yellow legal pad paper, my father's handwriting, slanted, heavy, addressed to my mother. Linda, I'm sorry. I was going to tell you after the Ridgewood house was sold. Keith said it would be easier that way. I read it 3 times. Each pass makes it worse. Keith didn't just know. Keith advised. Keith managed. Keith said it would be easier to keep my mother in the dark about her own money. I flipped through the tax returns. Atwood Contracting reported lower revenue than the internal ledgers show. That's a pattern I've seen 100 times in my career. It's how you siphon money through a business without leaving obvious footprints. Then I find the line that stops my breathing in my father's handwriting at the bottom of the letter. Bryce knows he's known since the audit 3 years ago. Please don't blame him. I told him not to tell you. 3 years. My brother had known for 3 years, and he sat at that funeral acting like a grieving son who just lost a saint. Morning light. I haven't slept. I find mom in the kitchen making coffee with shaking hands. I ask her about the papers Bryce had her sign yesterday. She pulls the carbon copy from the junk drawer. She always keeps copies. Old teacher habit. I read it at the counter while she pours cream into her mug. It's not a temporary authorization. It's a consent to sell agreement. For this house, 9 Maple Street, the buyer is an LLC called Ka Holdings. The listed sale price is $180,000. I pull up comparable listings on my phone. Houses on this street, this size, this lot. The lowest recent sale was $310,000. Fair market value for mom's house is at least $340,000. Mom, I say, keeping my voice level. They're trying to buy your house for half its value. Bryce and Keith are working together on this. She sets her mug down. That can't be right. Bryce is your brother. He wouldn't do that. I don't argue. I call Mara Feldman, my best friend from college, now a real estate attorney in Columbus. I read her the document over the phone, standing in the backyard where mom can't hear. Mara is quiet for 10 seconds. Then this consent is legally binding if Linda doesn't revoke it within 10 days of signing. When did she sign? 3 days ago. So you have 7 days. Shelby, who's Ka Holdings. I already know. K stands for Keith. A stands for Atwood. Mara says one more thing before we hang up. It changes everything. Shelby, there's something else. This LLC was registered 18 months ago while your dad was still alive. This wasn't a reaction to his death. This was a plan. I pick a public place. The coffee shop on Main Street, 2 blocks from the church. Bryce can't make a scene here. Half the town comes through before noon. He arrives in Dad's old work jacket, orders black coffee, sits across from me like this is a casual check-in. I don't waste time. You knew what about Noel, about Ridgewood, about the money. 5 seconds of silence. He stirs his coffee even though there's nothing in it. Dad asked me not to tell. He asked you not to tell Mom that he was spending her money on another family. It's more complicated than that. It's theft, Bryce. Community property. He leans forward. His voice drops. If you go public with this, the Harmon deal collapses. That's $400,000 gone. Mom's share too. Mom's share of what? Recurring annual 7 consecutive years. Keith Atwood legal consulting fee. Ridgewood, $8,500 a year, $59,500 total. Keith wasn't just keeping the secret, he was being paid to keep it. Ray calls back that evening with one last thing. The Harmon deal. Keith structured it so Linda's name gets removed from the company shares before closing. If it goes through, she gets nothing. I want to pause here for a second. If you've ever found documents that changed everything you believed about someone you loved, if you've ever sat in a room holding proof that the people you trusted were working against you, then you know this feeling. It's not just betrayal. It's like the ground disappearing beneath your feet while everyone around you pretends the floor is fine. If this story is hitting close to home, hit that subscribe button. I have a lot more to tell you. And trust me, what happened at the memorial tribute is something no one in Millfield will ever forget. Friday. My phone buzzes with a Facebook message from a name I don't recognize. Noel Pratt. I stare at it for a full minute before I open it. Hi, Shel. I found you through the Millfield community page. I'm not your enemy. I was lied to just like your mother was. Can we talk? I call the number. She leaves. She picks up on the first ring. Her voice is steadier than it was at the funeral. Quieter too, like someone who's had 5 days to rehearse what she wants to say and still isn't sure she has the right words. Gerald told me he was divorced, she says from the beginning. He said he and Linda separated in 2010 and finalized it quietly. I believed him because he never let me meet anyone from Millfield. He said it was too painful that his ex-wife was still bitter. She pauses. I found out 2 years ago. I was cleaning his truck and found a birthday card from Linda in the glove box. It was signed, your loving wife, not ex-wife. Wife. I closed my eyes. He admitted it. Noel continues. He cried. He swore he would tell Linda everything. He said Keith was already working on a plan to separate the finances so it would be, his word, cleaner. Keith handles everything on the legal side. Gerald's words. I have the texts. I have emails between them going back 3 years. I sit down on the edge of Mom's porch steps. If this goes to court, Noelle says, I'll testify. Those kids deserve to know their father wasn't the only liar in that family. She's quiet for a moment. Then she adds something I'm not prepared for. He told me your mother stopped loving him years ago. Funny and years ago. She was wearing his class ring at the funeral. Saturday morning, Mara drives down from Columbus. We set up at the diner where I met Rye. Neutral ground, good Wi-Fi, bottomless coffee. I spread everything across the booth. Ray's USB data. Noelle's forwarded emails, Dad's handwritten letter, the consent to sell agreement. Mom signed. Mara puts on her reading glasses and doesn't speak for 45 minutes. When she looks up, her face is grim. 3 patterns, she says. She ticks them off on her fingers. 1, Ridgewood operations, $3,200 a month for 17 years. That's your father funding a second household entirely from community property. 2, legal consulting fees to Keith, $8,500 a year for 7 years. That's not consulting. That's hush money with a line item. 3. And this is the one that should scare you. She taps the laptop screen. 18 months of pre-sale restructuring. The company's assets are being transferred into a new LLC. Linda's name has been systematically removed from the share structure. If the Harmon deal closes, your mother gets 0. This is textbook fraud on community property. Mara says your mother is entitled to claw back everything. I pick up my phone and call Keith. A test. I want to hear how he sounds when he's cornered. Uncle Keith, I found some discrepancies in the company books. Can we talk? His reply is instant and cold. Any company matters go through Bryce now. I don't advise family members against each other. More than 250 people fill the pews. Neighbors, business partners, members of the town council, employees of Atwood Contracting, Helen Marsh and her bridge club, and in the back row, 2 people I don't expect. A man and a woman in business suits. The woman holding a leather portfolio stamped with the Harmon Group logo. Bryce stands at the pulpit in a navy blazer, polished shoes, a folded speech in his breast pocket. He looks like a man auditioning for the role of community leader. My father taught me that family is the foundation. He says his voice carries easily. Everything he built, every house, every partnership, every handshake started with that principle. I stand here today to promise you that his legacy will continue. The room applauds. Mom smiles weakly from the front pew. Keith sits beside the Harmon representatives, shaking the man's hand. Bryce continues, I ask everyone here to support the Atwood family as we move forward together. More applause. Standing ovation from the first 3 rows. I sit in the second to last pew alone. No one sits within 2 seats of me on either side. Mara is 3 rows ahead with Ray Osborne. They don't look back. We agreed on that. Helen Marsh glances over her shoulder at me. She shakes her head slowly, the way you'd look at a child who won't stop misbehaving at a funeral. I keep my hand still. The USB drive is in my coat pocket. The laptop is in the bag at my feet. And outside, parked across the street, Noelle Pratt sits in her car with Jessa and Caleb, waiting for my text. Pastor Garrett opens the floor for family reflections. Any member of Gerald's family who'd like to share a memory or a word is welcome. I stand. The room shifts. I feel it. 250 people recalibrating. Some lean forward, some lean away. Bryce watches me from the pulpit like a man watching a fuse burn. I walk to the front. My shoes click on the hardwood floor. I can hear my own breathing. I'd like to share something about my father that Bryce steps forward. Shelby has been going through a very difficult time. He turns to the congregation, palms open. She hasn't fully accepted the loss yet. I hope you'll all understand. Caesar murmurs. A woman in the middle section whispers to her husband. Someone behind me says soft enough to be deniable. Poor girl. Keith rises from his seat. As the family's legal counsel, I'd ask that we respect the program. This is a tribute, not a trial. 2 men from the pew behind me. I recognize them. They coach Little League with Bryce, put their hands on my shoulders. Gentle pressure, firm enough to mean sit down. Mom looks at me from the front row. Her eyes are wet. Her lips move without sound. Please, not here. I sit down. The room exhales. Bryce smooths his jacket and returns to the podium. Thank you all for your understanding. Let's continue honoring my father the way he deserves. I fold my hands in my lap. The USB is still in my pocket. The laptop is still in my bag. The plan hasn't changed, just the timeline. They silenced me in my own father's church in front of my own mother, and the whole town watched and nodded. That was the last time anyone would silence me about anything. I sit in my car outside the church with the engine off. People file out in clusters, hugging Bryce, shaking Keith's hand, patting Mom's arm. Nobody looks toward my car. I call Mara. They shut me down. Bryce controls the narrative. Mom is a puppet. The house sale goes through in 2 days. We filed the fraud claim, Mara says. But court dates take weeks. Keeps take weeks. You need something faster. The Harmon deal. If Harmon Group finds out the company books were cooked, they pull out. That's Bryce's worst nightmare. Silence on the line. Then you tank your own family's company. It's not my family's company anymore. It's a crime scene. I hang up and call Noel. I need those emails, all of them. Every message between Gerald and Keith tonight. Noel's voice is steady. I'll send everything. But Shelby, my kids are in this too. He clears his throat twice before speaking. Shelby Atwood has requested to address the congregation with a family statement. I've agreed to allow this. I ask that we listen with grace. Bryce spots the projector screen. His eyes cut to me, then to Keith. Keith's phone disappears into his pocket. He sits up straight. I stand and walk to the front. I stand behind the podium. The projector hums. 250 faces look up at me, some curious, some hostile, most just waiting to see which version of Shelby Atwood shows up. I take one breath, then I begin. My father was a complicated man. I loved him. I still love him, and I want to show you exactly how complicated he was. I click the first slide. 2 birth certificates fill the screen. Jessa Marie Pratt, father. Gerald Raymond Atwood. Caleb Thomas Pratt, father Gerald Raymond Atwood. The silence is physical. I feel it press against the walls. Second slide. The Ridgewood lease agreement. 14 years renewed annually. Tenant Noel Pratt. Guarantor, Gerald R. Atwood. Third slide. A photograph. My father on a porch I don't recognize. Arms around 2 children grinning. The same photograph the woman placed in his casket. Murmurs, now. Chairs shifting. Helen Marsh's hand goes to her mouth. The man sitting behind Mom leans to his wife and whispers something. The wife shakes her head slowly, eyes wide. Bryce grips the edge of the pew. My father lived 2 lives for 17 years. I say he maintained a second family in Ridgewood, 90 minutes from here, and he funded it with money that belonged to my mother. I pause. That is not why I'm standing here. Bryce is on his feet. Shelby, stop. This is enough. You've made your point. I look at him. The entire church looks at him. So, sit down, Bryce. I'm not finished. I hold his gaze, and neither are you. The murmuring shifts. Heads turn between us. They heard it. Neither are you. The implication lands before I explain it. I loved my father, I say again. Quieter now. But love doesn't mean I bury the truth with him. What my father did was devastating, I say, but he's gone. He can't answer for it. The people I need to talk about now are sitting in this room. I click the next slide. A spreadsheet. Clean columns, highlighted rows. Atwood Contracting's internal ledger versus the filed tax returns. Huckskern. Revenue underreported by an average of $90,000 a year. This is the company's real financial record. I say over 17 years, $782,000 were transferred from Atwood Contracting to a phantom account called Ridgewood Operations. That money came from community property, assets that legally belonged to both my parents. I click again. Keith's consulting fees, a single line item, repeated 7 times. Keith Atwood, legal consulting fee. Ridgewood, $8,500 a year, $59,500 total. Keith stands. His chair scrapes the floor. This is defamation, and I will sit down, Uncle Keith. My voice is level. Everything on this screen is documented, time-stamped, and filed with the county court as of Monday morning. He sits. Next slide. The email, Gerald to Keith, October 3rd, 8 days before the heart attack. Make sure Linda's name is off the new structure before Harmon does their review. She can't find out this way. A gasp from the middle section. Someone says, oh my God. Loud enough to echo. Next slide. Ka Holdings LLC. Registered agent Keith Allen Atwood. Purchase agreement for 9 Maple Street at $180,000. Market value $340,000. My brother knew about the second family for 3 years. I say my uncle profited from it for 7 and 5 days. After my father died, they tried to buy my mother's house for half its value. In the back row, Claire Whitfield stands, pulls out her phone, and walks out of the church. The Harmon deal just died in real time. The church is vibrating, 250 people breathing at once. I can hear the wooden pews creaking as bodies shift. I'd like to introduce someone, I say. The side door opens. Oh, Noelle walks in, Jess on her left, Caleb on her right. Noelle's chin is up, Jess's eyes are red. Caleb stares straight ahead. My father's dark eyes in a 15-year-old face. Noelle steps to the front. Her voice shakes, but every word is clear. My name is Noelle Pratt. Gerald told me he was divorced. He wasn't. He wasn't. I have 2 children by him. I'm not here for money or sympathy. I'm here because he promised he would tell the truth, and he died without doing it. Jessa presses her face into her mother's arm. Caleb doesn't move. He looks at the congregation the way someone looks at a jury. Silence fills the church. Heavy pressing silence. The kind that has weight. Then my mother stands. Bryce grabs her arm. She pulls it free gently, firmly, the way you'd remove a hand that doesn't belong there. Linda Atwood walks down the center aisle. Every head turns. Every breath holds. She stops in front of Noelle. She looks at her. She looks at her. She looks at Jessa. Then at Caleb, 2 children who share her husband's blood and her daughter's eyes. You didn't do this to me, my mother says. He did. She turns to Bryce. Her voice carries through the silent church without effort. You knew. You knew. And you let me cry alone for 3 years, wondering why your father was so distant. Bryce opens his mouth. Nothing comes out. She turns to Keith. And you? You ate at my table every Thanksgiving while helping him pay for another one. My mother straightens her shoulders. I spent 34 years being a good wife. Today, I'm going to start being a good woman. I need to stop here for a moment because what my mother did next, standing up in that church, pulling her arm away from the man who'd been lying to her for 3 years, that took more strength than anything I've ever done in a courtroom. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and telling the truth, you know the cost. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had a family member betray your trust like that? And if you haven't already, hit subscribe because what happened after the tribute. That's where the real consequences began. Monday morning, 7:14 a.m., my phone rings. Clary Whitfield, Harmon Group. Her message is short. Following our review of newly disclosed financial irregularities, Harmon Group is withdrawing from the proposed acquisition of Atwood Contracting. A formal letter follows. Bryce calls 20 minutes later. I can hear him breathing before he speaks. When he does, his voice sounds like it's being squeezed through a pipe. You destroyed everything Dad built. No, Bryce, Dad destroyed it. You just tried to sell the wreckage. He hangs up. By noon, word has moved through Millfield the way it always does, fast in fragments, growing larger at each kitchen table. Bryce Atwood lost the Harmon deal. Keith Atwood is under investigation. Shelby Atwood had the receipts. The details get mangled in retelling, but core stays intact. The Atwood men were caught. Mara files the civil suit Tuesday morning. On behalf of Linda Atwood, recovery of community property transferred without spousal consent, cancellation of the Hay Holdings sale agreement, and full accounting of all Ridgewood related expenditures over 17 years. Keith receives a court summon not as counsel, but as a defendant. That same afternoon, Mara submits a complaint to the State Bar Association documenting Keith's dual role as family attorney and paid participant in the concealment of community property fraud. Metu, Bryce's $400,000 from the Harmon deal gone. Keith's $150,000 legal fee gone. The Hay Holdings house flip frozen, then voided. I don't call either of them. There's nothing left to say that a courtroom won't say better. That evening, I sit on Mom's porch. She brings me coffee without asking. We don't talk about the lawsuit or the deal or the church. She just sits next to me and says, the roof still leaks. I almost laugh. Wednesday, the court's injunction holds. A Holdings purchase of 9 Maple Street is officially voided. The house stays in Linda's name. Mara drives down for the day. She sits across from Mom at the kitchen table with a folder and a calm, clear voice. Linda, I need you to sign this revocation. It cancels the authorization you gave Bryce to manage your accounts. Mom reads every page this time. She signs at the bottom. Mara countersigns as witness. When Mara leaves, I sit where she sat. Mom stares at the kitchen wall at the spot where a family photo used to hang. She took it down yesterday. The nail is still there. How much did he take from us? She asked. First time she's asked directly. No cushion, no qualifier. almost $800,000 over 17 years. She's quiet for a long time. The kitchen faucet drips. That's why we couldn't fix the roof, she says. That's why you paid for your own college. That's why I've been clipping coupons for 30 years while he was paying for a second house in private school for children I didn't know existed. She puts both hands flat on the table, presses them down like she's studying the room itself. We'll get it back, Mom, as much as we can. She nods. Then she says something I don't expect. I want to meet those children properly. Not at a funeral. Not in a courtroom, at a table. They didn't choose this either. I reach across and put my hand over hers. Her fingers are cold. 30 years of coupons, she says quietly. 30 years of we can't afford that, Linda. And he was paying someone else's tuition. She doesn't cry this time. She's past that now. Bleh. The consequences arrive in sequence. Not dramatic, just steady. Like dominoes falling on carpet. Keith receives notice from the state bar, formal investigation opened. Allegations of conflict of interest, breach of fiduciary duty, and participation in community property fraud while serving as family counsel. He'll need to hire his own attorney. Now, the irony isn't lost on anyone. The court orders Keith to surrender all documentation related to the Ridgewood Trust. Every email, every ledger, every fee receipt. If the forensic review confirms fraud on community property, Linda is entitled to recover up to 100% of the diverted assets. Bryce is removed from his position at Atwood Contracting. The decision isn't mine. It comes from the employees. 2 senior foremen resign the same week, citing loss of confidence in leadership. The remaining crew holds a meeting at the warehouse and votes to request new management. Thursday evening, Bryce calls Mom. Tell Shelby to stop, he says. I can hear his voice through the phone from across the room. We're family, Mom. This is going to destroy us. Mom holds the phone with both hands. Family doesn't steal from family, Bryce. She hangs up first. It might be the first time she's ever hung up on him. At the grocery store Friday morning, Helen Marsh finds Mom in the produce aisle. She's carrying a casserole dish. Her face is different from the last time I saw her. Softer, embarrassed. I should have listened to your daughter, Helen says. I'm sorry, Linda. I didn't know. Mom takes the dish, nods once, doesn't smile. That night, I sit in my rental car outside the house. Engine off, I won. But the word feels wrong. You don't celebrate an amputation. You just learn to walk again. Millfield is a small town, the kind where everyone knows your business by Tuesday and has an opinion about it by Thursday. After that Sunday, they knew mine, all of it. Some brought casseroles, some crossed the street when they saw me. The town splits roughly down the middle. Half the people think I did the right thing. The other half think I should have handled it privately. That airing family business in church of all places was a step too far. Both halves talk to each other at the hardware store and pretend they don't disagree. Pastor Garrett asks to meet me at the church Tuesday afternoon. He sits in the same wingback chair where he counsel-littled my mother to forgive and forget. I owe you an apology, he says. Bryce told me you were unstable. You were unstable. I should have asked more questions before I gave your mother advice. You should have. He takes it. He doesn't argue. Wednesday, 3 employees from Atwood Contracting call me. The lead foreman, Dave, does most of the talking. We want to save the company. Nobody here was involved in the financial side. We build houses. Can you help us restructure? I connect them with Mara. She begins the paperwork for an employee buyout. Fair valuation, new management, Keith and Bryce removed from the organizational chart. Thursday, Noel texts me. I stare at the message for a minute before I can read it past the second sentence. Jessa asked me something today. She wants to know if Linda hates them. I forward it to Mom. Her reply takes an hour. Tell her I don't hate her. Tell her I need time, but I don't hate her. That night, Jessa sends me a friend request on Facebook. I accept it before I think twice, 2 weeks after the tribute. Mom is different. She starts with the bank statements. I sit beside her at the kitchen table and walk her through each line. Checking account, savings account, the joint account that's now frozen for the lawsuit. She's never read a financial statement in her life. Dad handled all of it. What's this charge here? She asks, pointing at a monthly deduction. Life insurance, Dad's policy, you're the beneficiary. He writes it down in a notebook. She writes everything down now. Amounts, dates, account numbers, her teacher's handwriting, neat and precise. She meets with a family law attorney. Mara recommends a specialist in posthumous asset recovery. The irony of filing paperwork against a dead husband isn't lost on her, but she does it without flinching. She takes down the rest of the photos of Dad from the hallway, stacks them in a shoebox, keeps one, their wedding photo, in her bedside drawer. He was still your father, she tells me when she sees me notice. I can hate what he did and still keep one picture. The meeting with Noel happens on a Wednesday. A coffee shop in Ridgewood, neutral territory, no children, no lawyers, just two women at a corner table. Noel tells me later that they sat in silence for the first 5 minutes. Mom ordered tea. No ordered water. Neither of them drank. Then Noel said, "I'm sorry." And Mom said, "I know. He fooled us both." They talked for an hour. They didn't become friends, but they exchanged phone numbers. And Noel texted me that evening. "Your mom is stronger than she knows." A week later, Jessa sends me a photo of her senior yearbook page. Below her name, one line, "Going to study accounting at State University, same field as me." The text arrives on a Thursday, 3 weeks after the tribute. "Can we talk? Not about lawyers, just us. Bryce." I stare at the screen for 5 minutes. Then I type back. "Town Park, Florida." He's already sitting on the bench by the fountain when I arrive. No press shirt today. Wrinkled jacket. He hasn't shaved. He looks like a man who's been sleeping in his truck, which, based on what Mom told me, he has been. His wife asked him to stay with a friend after the church incident. He doesn't have a friend offering. I sit on the opposite end of the bench, 2 feet of space between us. "I know I screwed up," he says. He stares at the fountain, but I was trying to protect Mom in my own way. "You were trying to protect the deal, Bryce. Mom was collateral." He shakes his head, but it's a reflex, not a rebuttal. He knows. I can see it in the slump of his shoulders. Whatever story he was telling himself, the one where he was the beautiful son carrying a burden placed on him, it collapsed the same day the Harmon deal did. I thought if I kept everything together, nobody would get hurt. Everyone got hurt. The only difference is now they know why. He cries quiet, shoulder shaking, crying. "I haven't seen my brother cry since he was 9 and broke his arm falling from the treehouse Dad built us. I don't reach for him." I don't move. "I don't hate you," I say, "but I can't trust you. And until you earn that back, if you ever do, this is where we are." He nods, wipes his face with his sleeve, stands up. "Okay," he says, and he walks away. Forgiveness isn't a gift you hand someone. It's a bridge they have to build. Bryce hadn't started building yet. Saturday morning. I load my suitcase into the rental car. Mom stands on the porch in her bathrobe, holding coffee with both hands. "You're sure you have to go?" "I've got clients waiting, Mom, but I'll call every Sunday. And Mara is 30 minutes away if you need anything legal." She nods. She looks smaller standing there alone, but not fragile, different, like a house that survived a storm and is still standing, a little battered, foundation showing, but upright. I drive east on Route 7, the same highway I took 10 years ago when I left Millfield for Ohio State, 18 years old. A scholarship in my pocket and my father's voice in my ear. "Go make me proud, Shelby girl." I thought I'd been running towards something. I was. I just didn't know I was also running away from a lie I hadn't discovered yet. 4 hours of farmland and 2-lane roads. I keep the radio off. My phone sits in the cup holder. I glance at it once. My contacts used to be mostly work, audit partners, clients, the coffee shop near my apartment that knows my order. Now the list has new names. Linda weekly calls Sunday mornings. Mara case updates. Bi-weekly, 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 bi-weekly. Ray Osborne Company restructuring progress. Noel Pratt updates on Jessa and Caleb. Jessa's sporadic text, mostly photos and questions about accounting programs. The Columbus skyline appears on the horizon around 3:00 p.m. My apartment, my desk, my routine, everything the same as when I left. Except I'm not the same. I don't hate you, Dad, but I'll never introduce you to anyone as a good man again. You were a man. A complicated, selfish, sometimes tender man. And that was enough to love you and not enough to trust you. The exit ramp comes up. I take it. Sunday night, my apartment in Columbus. The kitchen table is clean for the first time in a month. No spreadsheets, no legal folders, no evidence. I open my laptop and write an email to Mom. Mom, I want you to know something, and I want to say it clearly so there's no room for misunderstanding. I will always be here when you need me, always. If you call at 2 in the morning, I'll answer. If you need me in Millfield, I'll drive. But I also need you to understand this. I will never be silent when someone is hurting you. I don't care if that person is a stranger, a neighbor, a pastor, or your own son. If I see it, I'll say it. If I have proof, I'll show it. That's not disrespect. That's not me being difficult or bitter or unable to let go. That is love, the kind of love that costs something. If I ever have to choose between keeping the peace and protecting you, I will choose you every single time. Love isn't silence, Mom. Silence is what got us here. Love Shelby. I hit send. I close the laptop and go to the kitchen for water. My phone buzzes before I get back to the table. Mom's reply. 3 lines. I wish I'd had your spine 30 years ago. I'm proud of you. Call me Sunday. I set the phone on the counter. I lean against the wall and close my eyes. And for the first time in a month, the first time since that Tuesday morning in October, when a woman I'd never met placed a photograph in my father's casket, I cry. Not the broken kind, not the kind that doubles you over. The kind that comes when you finally set something down that's been too heavy for too long. I'm not telling you this story so you'll hate my father or my brother or my uncle. I'm telling it because somewhere out there right now, someone is being told to keep the peace. Someone is sitting at a kitchen table looking at numbers that don't add up. And a voice in their head or a voice in their family is saying, don't make this a big deal. Don't rock the boat. Just let it go. I spent 32 years letting things go. I let it go when Dad missed my college graduation because of a job site emergency in Ridgewood. I let it go when Mom asked why the savings account was always lower than she expected. And Dad said construction costs were up. I let it go because I loved him, and loving someone was supposed to mean trusting them. But here's what I learned standing at that podium in Millfield Community Church with 250 people staring at me. Asking questions is not betrayal. Silence in the face of injustice. That's the betrayal. That's the one that actually breaks a family. My mother spent 34 years as a loyal wife. She clipped coupons. She fixed dinner every night. She trusted her husband because that's what she was taught a good wife does. And none of that loyalty was returned. She's learning to read bank statements at 59. She says it's humiliating and empowering at the same time. And she doesn't know which one wins yet. I think that's the most honest thing anyone in my family has said in 17 years. I don't hate my brother. I hate what he did. And I'll keep my distance until he understands the difference. People say don't air dirty laundry, but that's just what people with dirty laundry want you to believe. 6 months later, here's where things stand. The court ruled in Mom's favor. She recovered $520,000 of the $782,000 that was diverted. The rest had already been spent. Private school tuition, medical bills, the Ridgewood house itself. You can't claw back money that's already gone. But you can claw back enough to fix a roof, pay off a mortgage, and start a savings account with your own name on it. Keith's law license was suspended for 2 years. He closed his office in Millfield and moved to his wife's family property 2 counties over. Last I heard, he's doing tax preparation from a strip mall. No one from Millfield has hired him. Bryce is still in town. He doesn't manage Atwood Contracting anymore. The employees completed the buyout. Mara handled the paperwork and rebranded the company. New name, new management, same crew. They build good houses. Dad taught them that much at least. Mom and Noel aren't friends. They don't need to be, but they respect each other. Noel brings Jessa to visit Mom once around the holidays. They sit in the kitchen and drink tea and talk about the weather and the kids and nothing at all about Gerald. It's enough. Bryce and I don't talk regularly. He sends a text on Mom's birthday. I send one at Christmas. That's where we are? Maybe it'll change someday. Maybe it won't. Jessica got into State University accounting. She texted me a picture of her acceptance letter and asked if she could call me sometime with questions. I said yes. My family isn't what I thought it was. It never was. But at least now, when we sit at a table together, nobody's hiding anything under it. We're not the Atwoods people thought we were. We're the Atwoods we actually are. And that's enough. That's my story, or at least the part I can tell right now. If you've ever had to choose between family peace and family truth, I'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done with that manila envelope? Would you have opened it or let it stay sealed? If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe and check out the next story in the description. It's about a woman who found out her mother had been cashing her paychecks for years. Trust me, you don't want to miss that one. Thank you for staying with me. I'll see you in the next